What'd he say?
Come on, Kelly. It's not like I'm asking you to hit my crack.
Just say.
Welcome to the podcast Compels You, the show where we are given curse categories by our evil AI chatbot, tasked with finding horror movies that fit in those categories and sharing them with you lovely people. I'm Bill, and with me as always is my co-host Stacy. How are you doing, Stacy?
Hello. I'm doing great. Thanks. How are you?
I am also well. It has been a not to ruin anything, but it's been a long time since we've talked, actually. We've had a little bit of a break here, so I think we have a lot of
That's
catching up to
true.
do here. So I got to ask you, what have you been watching? What's new in the horror world?
I have to disappoint you with the fact that, well, I think you know, I did some traveling related to a novel that I'm trying to finish and hopefully sell. And with all of that, I did not get to go to the movie theater. I did not have good streaming in the hotel room or anything like that. Plus, I was just dead tired. So I saw one movie.
Okay.
I saw one movie in the theater. So it was The Watchers starring Dakota Fanning. Have you seen this, Bill?
No, but I saw the trailer for it. How was it?
It was okay. It was good. Between okay and good. I was looking forward to seeing it because I had read the book last year by A.M. Shine. And
Hmm.
honestly, as a member of the ever shrinking literate community, yes, I said literate on purpose, not literary. As a member of the literates, I'll pay money to support like any horror adaptation of a book because it's really hard to even sell a book right now. To get it optioned for a movie is like a small miracle, let alone getting the movie ever made, which takes forever and, has all kinds of possibilities of falling off the tracks at any place along the way. Like almost nobody makes their living writing books nowadays, even people that you consider famous authors. One of my favorite authors who has 2 movie adaptations, and he's still a high school teacher.
Hmm.
Here's an idea. Let's support writers who write stuff that we like, even if we're not sure going to like the movie. It's okay if we don't like the movie. Which leads me to my next point. The movie was okay. I have some mixed feelings and I have some criticisms. I think it was kind of ham-fisted in some places to the point of characters making dumb decisions for the sake of exposition. That was just a little bit too heavy-handed. I think the movie was too not subtle in many ways. It worked very, very hard to hammer at its obvious themes at every opportunity. It screamed at us to notice things that should have been barely whispered, like things that would be more fun to just notice on our own, because that's part of the game of seeing a movie for me. I'm like, oh, did you see that foreshadowing? Like that's me.
Right.
I guess it doesn't work with all movies. I think that's all I can complain about without spoilers. But the most interesting thing about this movie is that its adaptation was written by Shauna Knight Shyamalan, who was only 23 years old at the time. And she also directed the movie, which was produced by her dad. And so I went in thinking this is going to be awful because I'm so ageist. Isn't that terrible? But it was not awful. So however you want to feel about that. I mean, like at age 23, I was not doing anything creative. I was working a shit job and just barely surviving. That said, how hard could it possibly be to break into the industry when you're a Night Shyamalan? But in conclusion, should you see the movie? Yes, absolutely. Support A.M. Shine, the writer, because it's a good thing to do. Don't get me wrong, there's like plenty to enjoy about it. There's plenty of scares. I can definitely have fun with a movie without it being the perfect movie. It's just like more fun to talk about the criticisms for some reason. I don't know why. Okay. End rant.
I got to ask, was there a Shyamalan twist?
No.
Oh.
Let me go back and just revise that a little bit. There's a twist in the book. It's not really a Shyamalan twist. So they may have made that twist just a little more exaggerated in the movie, but I think that's what they would have done in a movie anyway.
Gotcha.
I am really excited about seeing an old movie tomorrow. I've probably mentioned that I go to the series called Graveyard Shift of
Mhm.
classic and like not new horror movies at the Alamo Draft House. And the movie for tomorrow night is Lake of Dracula, 1971, from the Toho
Ooh.
studio in Japan, which is of course is the production company that has brought us many decades of Godzilla. And the exciting thing that relates to this podcast is that Lake of Dracula is purportedly inspired by the American Hammer Company Dracula. Do you know who the Hammer Dracula is, Bill, by any chance?
Yes, I believe I do. That's funny you bring up Dracula. Actually, that's going to come up later. But
Huh?
that sounds very interesting. What year was it? You said 71?
71.
Oh, okay. And have you seen it before?
No, but I know who it's supposed to be inspired by, Sir Christopher Lee's Dracula, whom we recently discussed in our Wickerman episode, which has nothing to do with Lake of Dracula. And for its part, Lake of Dracula has nothing to do with Dracula, as far as I can tell. The movie is not even titled that in Japanese.
Okay.
Anyway, it sounds like a wild ride. We'll report back.
Cool. That sounds exciting.
What about you? What have you been watching?
I have been watching just a random smattering of movies. So the first one I watched was Don't Breathe 2. Did you ever see Don't Breathe?
Yes.
Blind man in a house in
Yes.
Detroit.
Did not appreciate the twist. Did not appreciate Act 3 whatsoever.
Oh, yeah.
Would not see the second one for that reason, but please go on.
I agree. The third act of the first movie it's rough, it's out of left field, it leaves an impression, I'll give it that much.
Mhm.
Not a good impression. But the sequel, which I had not gotten around to seeing until recently, starts off fantastic. The first like half of the movie is great. It's kind of everything I like with like a reverse home intruder movie kind of, twist on it. And then they just throw in a whole bunch of backstory and stuff that
Ugh.
bogs down the whole second half of the movie.
Why do they
It's
do
it's
that?
almost like a reverse movie. Usually you build up the story and then it kind of reaches a climax at the end. This one was just like pumped the brakes in the middle of the movie and just died, which I was really mad about because I actually enjoyed the first movie, at least the first like half of it. I thought it was a pretty innovative idea for like a home invasion.
You know what I enjoyed about the first movie? The
What's that?
marketing. They really marketed it very well. The
Yes.
trailers were very tight, and I was like pumped to see it.
And I love all these films that are being shot in Detroit. They just have such a vibe to them, and I think it's so cool that they took that city and just made it kind of like a definitely not a horror mecca, but for like a while there was just a bunch of films being filmed there, and they have such a distinct look. Like It Follows is another one where you put that next to Don't Breathe, and they look so similar to each other, and
Wasn't
it's so cool.
Barbarian also there? Or am I wrong?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, totally right. And they all just have that look and feel of Detroit, and kind of its transitioning stages amongst economic poverty and trying to be rebuilt, So that's got
It's a
its own
great
interesting
backdrop.
story
Yeah.
itself. Exactly. Yeah. So that one, it lost me. But the next one, Evil Dead Rise, I just got around to watching.
Isn't it good?
And
Isn't it good?
this one was actually kind of the opposite. It kind of started off a bit slow for me,
Mm-hmm.
but oh my God, it just ramps up to the very last moment of the movie. And it just gets better and better and bloodier and bloodier. And I
Sure
loved
does.
it.
Yes.
The two main women, the leads in it, are just fantastic. I thought the kids they're fine, but like the special effects and all that, just chef's kiss. I was pleasantly surprised by that movie in a lot of ways.
It went hard.
Yeah, it did. I don't have a huge history with like the Evil Dead franchise in general. Like I've seen them all, but like, I liked Army of Darkness, which is like the comedic one, more or
Mm-hmm.
less, with him going back in time. Like as a kid, that was my like favorite movie of all time, but kind of doesn't have a lot to do with the
It
rest of the
doesn't.
series. It's kind of a goofy
That
little
was
side
also
movie.
the one that was most popular, like with my friend group when I was
Oh,
in
it's
high
just super
school.
quotable, I think, more than anything. It's not very scary. It's just kind of silly, but I always enjoyed that one. So this one definitely I was surprised by, and I will continue to watch any new ones that come out because this one I really enjoyed.
Always so excited when one of those comes out, and like this one did not disappoint.
No, and such a cool setting, like an apartment building. I thought that was very interesting, which actually made me want to watch my third movie, which was called 1BR or One Bedroom. Have you seen that
Oh,
movie?
I've seen it like I've seen the thumbnail on some streaming at
Yeah.
some time.
Really good movie. Also takes place in a apartment building, like almost solely in an apartment building. Has to do with a cult.
Yes.
Don't want to ruin it for
Yes,
anyone
I've
out
seen
there.
it. Don't say anything else.
Yes, it's a very, I would say, kind of like a slow burn, kind of slowly reveals itself, and it just gets all of a sudden you're just like, this is really creepy.
It
And
gets the ending right.
Yes,
for sure. It's like a very memorable movie with a not very memorable title. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
it
Not a
doesn't
terribly
stick in here,
memorable
but
cast. No,
yeah.
like nothing is that memorable, but overall the movie I think is kind of memorable. It's a very unique plot, I would say, and you know,
Yeah.
there's so many cult movies out there, so to do a cult movie that's kind of, I don't know, paced a little differently, I kind of appreciated that.
I went into it knowing nothing at all about the plot, like knowing less than what you said, and I thought that was part of the fun. So don't look anything up about it if you're gonna see it.
Yeah.
Stay away from reviews.
That's what I like about this podcast. I've been trying to go into all these movies. I haven't seen most of these that we've done so far. And every time I go in cold, it's just, I think I enjoy it so much more. I can just try to, I mean, it's hard to do when you're trying to like research a movie and not see anything about it at the same time.
Yeah.
But if you can try to stay away from the plot and, you know, some of that stuff, I think it works out better. Anyway, yeah, those are a few. I've watched a few others as well, but those were kind of the standout ones, I would say. And yeah, just been hitting a good streak of movies lately. So I think that takes us to today's movie. So Stacey, would you like to reveal the cursed categories as well as the movie that we watched today?
I would. Before I do that, though, I have a celebrity anecdote.
Ooh.
A horror celebrity anecdote, sort of. I was at a conference, you know, like I said, doing things with my novel, and I was at the elevator bank. No one else was around, and Stephen Graham Jones walks up, who is a much cherished horror author. Like his most famous thing going on right now, I think, is My Heart is a Chainsaw and the other two books in the Indian Lake trilogy. And I'm like, I'm going to be cool. I'm going to be cool. And I was very cool. And I was also wearing my shirt that said directed by John Carpenter, and it says nothing else. It's just a black shirt.
Nice.
And I was so happy because he turned to me and he goes, I like your shirt. And I said, thank you. And then we got into the elevator. And then another latecomer lady gets on the elevator with us and she goes, oh my God, Stephen Graham Jones. Oh my God, I'm such a big fan. And I felt like the coolest person in the whole universe, that I kept it together for the whole. And I pushed everyone's buttons, which is complicated because you have to have a key card for every button push.
Oh, you literally meant pushing buttons. I thought you were like psychologically pushing people's buttons.
Refrained from that as well.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, usually when I'm that like freaked out, you know,
yeah,
I don't motor skill good. So this is you know, as well as a happy celebrity anecdote, it was an achievement.
Well, that could have gone awry. So when you had said, you know, you'd shown him your shirt and he liked it, you could have gone the other route and just taken your shirt off and given it to him. That would have been like the
goodness. I think I would have gotten kicked out of the conference. It's not that
absolutely.
Kind of conference.
See, that would have been the less good outcome of that, I think. So I think you chose the right way.
I think so too. About this podcast today and about this movie, this episode is actually our second go around of our 2-part series, Box Office Bombs on the Beach, meaning movies that both bombed at the box office and took place in a beach setting. Last time we discussed the fiasco of a found footage flop that was 2012's The Bay. Tonight, we are most pleased to bring you the finest in sophisticated analysis of cinematic artistry as we unravel the nuanced layers of thematic complexity, explore the profound existential queries posed by the filmmakers, and marvel at the meticulous craftsmanship that truly elevates this work to the pinnacle of the seventh art. Our discerning critique will illuminate the subtle interplay of light and shadow, the deft use of mise-en-scène, and the evocative power of narrative structure. Please join us as we embark on an intellectual odyssey through the realms of visual poetry and dramatic innovation, with our focus on the magnum opus that is 2004's comedy horror mystery, Club Dread. Thank you. Thank you
That
very
was
much.
beautiful.
Thanks.
You got me excited.
I think I started this off with accuracy. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with every word you said.
Great. So, about this movie, the writing credit for Club Dread belongs to an American comedy troupe, Broken Lizard. They did some other stuff that I don't care about. Bill will probably tell you, of which group director Jay Chandrasekhar is a member. Chandrasekhar has made a few movies with Broken Lizard, but his bread and butter seems to be TV comedy writing. Club Dread is his only horror credit. Club Dread stars the members of Broken Lizard, including Chandrasekhar himself as a tennis pro in a giant problematic wig of dreadlocks with the worst British accent I have heard since my high school production of Pride and Prejudice. Also starring as Brittany Daniel, who was a Doublemint twin, who would go on to appear in one other horror movie, The Hamiltons, 2006. Haven't seen it, but it looks bloody. Club Dread also stars, very strangely, Bill Paxton, who has made so many movies, of course. Props to him for Aliens, Predator 2, and one episode of Tales from the Crypt. On the horror side,
R.I.P. Sadly, that came out of nowhere. He was
yeah,
kind of young, I think.
yeah. Now I don't want to talk more about the movie. I'm sad, but that's okay. I'm gonna just compartmentalize and do like we do modern day Americans, just push my feelings down, squash, 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 and tell you more about this movie. The movie starts out in the honored slasher tradition of people sneaking off to have sex and getting murdered. In this case, the unique element, I guess, it was supposed to be a menage a trois, but it wasn't at any point because they all got macheted to death. Then we are introduced to Pleasure Island, supposedly a private island in Costa Rica, although the film was filmed in Mexico. Private island owned by Coconut Pete, an eccentric Jimmy Buffett pastiche who runs a swingers resort. A cloaked killer is chopping up the staff. Who could it be? Cut off from communications and transportation, the staff members race against the clock to identify the killer as they continue to die off, one by one. Bill, I don't think you saw this movie before, did you?
Nope, never even heard of it before you brought it to my attention. I have a little bit of history with the Broken Lizard comedy troupe. Their first movie, Super Troopers, hit me right when it should have, like right during high school. Super quotable with my friends. I still remember like all the scenes and thought it was hilarious back then. That and like Office Space, it was kind of that time of comedies, a lot of quotable comedies. So given that, I felt I had a pretty good idea of kind of their comedy sensibilities, which had me kind of excited. I'm not going to lie. I really liked Super Troopers. I don't know if it holds up. I would love to watch it again, see if I still like it. But no, I had not seen this movie. But three things that I expected to see. The first was a wet t-shirt contest. Second, a character who is defined by their penchant for weed.
Oh,
And then third, that might be my winner there.
yeah.
A character who is dating or married to someone for their money. So those were my three predictions. Yeah.
I mean, those are all like those all seem like good gambles to me.
Yeah, I thought so too. But I think I may have been 1 for 3, but we'll see as we go through the movie. So, Stacy, had you seen this movie before?
Just want to point out that this is only our second episode in which I had not seen the movie prior. I do have three things, and last time I got 2 out of 3 of my things. So let's see how I fare this time. 3 things I expected to see in the movie after reading only the IMDb synopsis is a string bikini, which might be cheating because I think there's actually one on the cover.
Oh,
But I'm not
yeah. We're gonna have
sure.
to go to the judges on that
When I
one.
when I went back to look at the cover, at least on IMDb, I didn't see it. As I think I might have imagined it. The second thing is a character mistakes the killer as their partner or lover in the dark, and by the time they realize their mistake, it's too late. That totally could have happened.
Yeah. Okay, I like that one.
My third one was this is the most interesting, I think. The final girl will be the most prudish character who is probably at this resort only because of some mistake or misunderstanding. So we'll see.
There is kind of a character
Yeah,
kind of like
kind
that.
of, right? I gave myself half credit for
Yeah.
that one.
maybe quarter. I don't know. Half might be.
Come on.
Just kidding. You give it whatever credit you want. Here at the podcast compels you. We just throw out credits like it's no one's business.
I feel like content warnings are probably not even necessary because you're probably going to see exactly the kind of shit that you would imagine that you're going to see. It's actually tamer than I imagined. Not as gory, not as much. I guess it was considered, pretty graphic sex scenes and stuff at the time, but like for now, it's nothing really
No.
really great. Sorry, Mom. I mean, it's a slasher comedy about swingers. So I can't do anything.
Yeah.
My hands are tied. No, they're not. Violence and gore, sex scenes and nudity, regular stuff. Dark fact of the day. Go.
Dark fact.
Today's dark fact involves the kukri, a weapon featured prominently in this movie. The kukri is a short sword originating from the Indian subcontinent with a distinctive curved blade. It often gets mistaken for like a machete in a lot of ways. I think they use the words interchangeably. It serves as both a weapon and a cutting tool. In Bram Stoker's 1897 novel Dracula, the titular character's demise is commonly believed to involve a stake through the heart. This lore is mentioned throughout the book. However, he actually meets his end when Jonathan Harker slashes his throat with a kukri, followed by Quincy Morris thrusting a Bowie knife into his heart. So, as a reader of all things, did you know that, Stacy?
I did not remember that word. Now I'm thinking probably I've never heard it out loud before. I want to ask you how to spell it, but that's probably not good podcast content. Yeah, I'm just like, did I miss that it wasn't a machete? I mean, it looked like a machete to me. Did you just know what it was, or did they mention it in the movie?
Actually, I was thinking today, I was trying to figure out how I ended up at kukri, but I think they may said it or something I was researching. But it has a very distinctive, like curved blade that you'll notice. Like a machete is just a very straight blade, and it kind of maybe gets a little like longer towards the end. But yeah, kukri. I don't know. I've seen them before too, but I guess in the book I was trying to read the passage, and it doesn't say that, but the character has a kukri on him prior to killing Dracula. So they say like he takes out his knife. So that's how you get to that. And then it's a Bowie knife that actually stabs him in the heart to kill him.
Props to this movie for having an interesting weapon, more interesting than a machete. And I would like to think that it is a nod to Dracula, but knowing these people, probably it was not.
I will say I was reading interviews, and at least one or two of them are huge horror fans. So there is a lot of stuff peppered in this movie that you would actually might be a little surprised that it actually is kind of an homage.
Retract that.
And some of them are kind of obvious too. But anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting. And there are machetes in this movie as well. They're not all these kukris, but I think a lot of what the killer uses is that. So anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting. So that was our dark fact of the day. So now we're going to take a brief intermission, and we will be back with our spoilerific plot discussion of Club Dread. So stick around. All right, and we are back, and we are going to get into our spoilerific plot discussion of Club Dread. So the film opens on Pleasure Island in the jungles of Costa Rica. A college bro and a young woman are messing around in the jungle. The guy lights a joint while she licks his chest? Question mark.
And then he has this such great line. It's like, "What about my nipple?" Because she's like looking around the corner.
I don't want to yuck anyone's yum. I absolutely don't. But this, I was like,
I did laugh at
seems out of left field. And okay, we get a lot of character development from that line from him. I feel like I get to know him a little better.
From that line, I had actually higher hopes for the movie than it lived up to.
Don't spoil your rate.
Yeah.
Anyway, while this is happening, someone is watching. So the two of them proceed to a burial ground, and they come across a tiki statue, a monkey jumps out at them, and then a blonde woman comes by with drinks. All three go into an abandoned mausoleum, where there are masks and a machete on the wall, alongside a well-endowed statue. All three of them start messing around, and then the mask on the wall begins walking and then kills the man. And the two women run out through the jungle with blood all over them. The blonde falls off a cliff into the water while grabbing the blade of the machete, which I thought was kind of gnarly. It's kind of a gnarly vision. Like instead of holding his hand, she's holding the blade and it's
They
like slowly slipping down.
really wanted to get to us with that shot.
Yeah. It got me. I don't know. Something about just blades and
Well, I
hands
know,
and
same,
ugh.
yeah.
Anyway, so I thought that was kind of fun. And then the brunette runs to safety. So she is back at the resort. She's kind of on the outskirts of the resort, and she is beheaded before the whole group of partiers can see or hear her. And then we get our title card in a very 80s slasher style.
Can I just say the brunette that was beheaded was like one of the most annoying characters in the movie. And that says a lot. And her name was Stacy. It's really
was it? I didn't catch
me.
that.
And she says "ow" all the time, like as an affirmative, like as an excited interjection. And I was really hoping she was going to say it when she got murdered, but she did not.
Oh,
she did not get a chance to say anything at all.
Yeah, sadly, we did not get a lot of time with these incredible characters. But yeah, I liked the 80s slasher style title card. That was fun. I'm always a fan of interesting title cards. I'm just going to really hit on the highlights of this movie. So I'm going to really dwell on those things that I kind of liked.
That's the way to do it, I think.
That's the way to do it. So we then get 1 hour earlier, and we see a boat that is delivering people to Coconut Pete's Pleasure Island. We meet all. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Did you?
I just see you laughing.
No, did you ever figure out, is there a purpose for just starting 1 hour later than the beginning?
I honestly think that might have been a joke. That might have been the first joke, I think.
If that's a joke, then well played. Well played, Broken Lizard.
Yeah, this whole trying to traverse time and space for no particular narrative reason. It's fantastic. Anyway, so we cut to a boat that is delivering people to Coconut Pete's Pleasure Island, and we get a very convenient introduction to all of the main cast, the main ensemble. We have Jenny, who is in charge of aerobics. We have Juan, who's in charge of water sports. Juan Castillo, that is. We have Putman, who is the tennis pro, and as you mentioned, also the writer and director of this movie. And then we have Dave, who is the DJ and in charge of drugs. And then we have Sam, who is the fun police. So this whole first part here, we're basically just getting introduced to these characters, learning a bit more about them. Dave just keeps putting, I think, ecstasy in like all of the drinks that he's serving, which I'm like,
is that what's
seems
happening?
like a nightmare. Okay. Yeah. I think he's putting ecstasy tablets in like every drink. And I'm like, that sounds terrible.
Shouldn't do that without getting consent, but yeah.
Yeah, and even with consent, that's just too many people on ecstasy in one place.
They're on an island. What could happen?
Yeah, what bad could go wrong? We'll find out. So then we get introduced to your host and rock and roll's favorite son, Coconut Pete, played by the great Bill Paxton in a very Captain Ron type role. Do you remember Captain Ron, the movie?
Yeah.
I was getting like Captain Ron vibes from him, like this laid back island guy who's just like clearly like burnt out after, like years of partying and like, kind of a good time. I don't know. I kind of liked him in this.
Me too. I thought we could have used like more of him in this movie.
I wonder if he was only able to film for like a few days or something. Like, could they have put him in this movie more? Like he was probably the most famous out of this entire movie in terms of actors. So I wonder if they only had him for a few days.
I don't know. Doublemint Girl.
Yeah.
She did a Sweet Valley High show.
Well, then I take back my previous comments. Anyway, we have a young woman, Penelope, who seems lost in the forest, and she ends up running into Jenny, who's in a gorilla costume. This is not important, except that we meet Penelope. So there's Penelope.
And we'll never call her that again.
No, and it's my favorite. We'll get there. We then see two of the male staff who are kind of like oogling all the women at the pool, while the brunette woman who is being chased tries to get their attention. So we see the whole first scene from another point of view. You see her in the background, and then she gets beheaded. Yep, we already talked about that. Then we have Lars, who is the new masseuse, who has a ridiculous hairstyle. He's very like new agey, into all these weird philosophies, or they're probably made up, I imagine, in like different I don't even know what you'd call him. And so he's introducing himself to Jenny and you immediately find out that him and Jenny are starting to flirt with each other. That continuously happens throughout this movie. And then we find out that Dave, who again is the DJ slash drug provider, is Coconut Pete's nephew. So that is a very important piece of information. We then cut to like the opening night party complete with like an ice luge where they're pouring vodka down an ice thing, which is awesome. Just I've never gotten to do one, but just seems amazing.
Have you
I think I'm
seen
too
one
old
in
for
real
that now.
life?
No, absolutely
Okay.
not.
Never
No,
seen
no, no.
anything like any of that.
I'd like to think they exist in real life and not just in movies, but I don't know. Don't ruin it for me if they don't. So Lars meets Coconut Pete, who has him put on the pleasure sweater, which I thought was quite a hilarious thing.
And it was
Like
like
he's so
all
excited to be.
gummy.
Yeah, oh, it's terrible. Like they're in this like tropical climate. He hasn't put on this like heavy sweater because he works at the island. Like it's a very like business like thing there, which is hilarious because it's Coconut Pete saying this. And then we have the fun police, or Sam, who's blasting people with a super soaker of tequila. Then we get Putman, who is flirting with Jenny at the bar, and the young guest, who is played by Sam Levine from Freaks and Geeks, which I thought was just like
Oh,
such a
that's
fun.
who that was. Okay.
Yeah, he kind of looks like the same age too, which is weird. Like he doesn't really age, I don't think. Who kind of comes up, and this is a running gag throughout the thing. He starts kind of like giving Putman a hard time about his accent and all of this, and he's saying like,
"Oh, all alone, huh? Well, don't worry. No woman, no cry, right, man?"
This continues throughout the whole movie. Then we get Juan Castillo and Penelope, who are chained together by the fun police, and they are introducing each other to one another. And Penelope's wearing a name tag that has her name Penelope on it, and Juan thinks that it's Penelope. So throughout the entire films, he refers to her as Penelope, which is hilarious, and it's kind of sweet. I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of sweet throughout the movie. They're a very sweet couple, I would say.
I like the sound of Penelope, and I like the joke. What bothers me, and maybe I'm just like, maybe this is too critical. It bothers me that supposedly a Spanish speaker is the one that would make that mistake. A Spanish speaker would say Penelope because you would
Right.
just read it like the name. I mean, the name exists in Spanish. The name exists in Greek mythology. Like it's a well-known name. Penelope Cruz for crying out loud. Like people know how to pronounce that name.
I think that might be the joke too. Yeah, the person that should be able to pronounce it doesn't know how to
Why
pronounce
am
it.
I not capable of understanding these next level jokes? Please school me.
Well, it's funny. I noticed throughout the film, there's other like Spanish words that they completely butcher. Like they'll say like pinata instead of pinata, or they'll say
Oh.
like cabana instead of cabana, or whatever it was. There was like a few words that stuck out of me, and they must be jokes. Again, I don't know if they're jokes. It's hard to tell. A lot of this movie has jokes that I'm not sure if they're jokes.
It
I
might
think
be
that
like
was difficult for
inside
me.
jokes to the people in the movie.
Which makes the film like so much more fun for them to watch than everybody else that they made the movie for. Yeah, that's a great way to do that. Anyway, so they're talking. She talks about how she goes to Oral Roberts University,
That's
which leads
funny.
to multiple sex jokes, and you know where that goes. I don't know why I put this in my notes, but it says two people are fucking in a fish tank, to which Juan replies, "Ah, yes, this is a very magical place."
That was a little bit of a shock, and that was a funny line. But at this point, I still haven't laughed out loud. I'll tell you when that happens.
Okay, I can't wait to find out what got you.
It's coming soon.
Okay, cool. Meanwhile, an employee named Carlos goes on break, and we first see the employee leaderboard, which will become very important throughout the movie. The employee leaderboard lists all of the employees and kind of which activities they're supposed to be running throughout the week. And then at the very bottom, there's a Guess the Coconut Pete song, win a drink, where they give a lyric, and then if you guess what song it's from, you get a free drink. Also will be important throughout the movie. Carlos goes, he hears something in the garbage, ends up getting killed by a guy in a poncho. Nothing all that exciting there. Next, we cut to the beach bonfire where Lars and Pete are singing Ponytails and Cocktails. So we get our first taste of Coconut Pete's discography here. And a drunk girl, of course, yells, "Play Margaritaville," to which Coconut Pete takes offense, saying that she must be confused with his song, Pina Colada Berg, which was written years before the Jimmy Buffett song.
I thought him taking offense was it's so much a great offense. was
Yes.
funny.
Because he's heard it like a million times. Like it's just, oh, come on, seriously? I'm just gonna say everything with Coconut Pete is pretty amazing in this movie. I'm just gonna keep laughing at
I
all of
think
this stuff. So
Coconut Pete and Lars are the best characters.
yeah, yeah, I could see that.
I don't know. Sometimes the drug DJ like has a good line.
I expected more from him, honestly, but yeah,
Yeah.
I hear you. Next, we have Dave telling a kind of like spooky story about a machete maniac who chopped off his penis and now lives in the forest. It ends with Dave and Putman tucking their penises and taking their pants off, which not that funny, but this leads me to what I think is kind of funny about this movie. Have you ever been to like an all-inclusive resort or like that type of thing before?
No.
Okay, well, I've been to like a couple of them, and that they're fun for what they are, but the weird thing about them is so the people that are like running it and all the employees, their whole job is to like make you have fun and relax and all this stuff. So they're all like playing characters. And so if you stay for like longer than a week, everything kind of resets. So like they now welcome the new people. They put the same shows on after that. So I like to think with things like this, Dave tells this story every single week to the new batch
Sure.
of people that are coming to this island. And
Absolutely.
it's almost like a joke. There's a lot of stuff in this movie like that where they're just like going through it because it's a job for them, but for the guests, this is their whole vacation.
It's kind
So
of
it's almost like a look
like
behind the curtain at that.
it's kind of like summer camp, except fortunately, no one pulled down their pants at summer camp. But like the same thing happens,
Ever?
like the same songs every year at the
Yes.
campfire. Yeah.
And you know, these employees are just like rolling their eyes. They're like getting out of bed, like, ah, crap, we have to do this. Okay, we're gonna do the bonfire tonight. They even like mentioned later they're like having a luau. It's like, all right, who can run the luau tonight? Like it's just like a drudgery to get through this stuff. So I kind of appreciated that. It's almost like a commentary on just resorts in general. But anyway, the next day we get a montage of all the staff members doing their assigned activities with the guests. And then we get the game of Human Pac-Man that takes place in the tropical hedge maze, where the men and women take turns chasing each other. What did you think about this?
Okay, I loved that scene.
Yes.
And but I had a laugh before this scene. I had a laugh
Oh,
in this
okay.
scene and before this scene. Did we skip? Was this the previous day? Sorry to take us back. When Jenny and Lars are talking, and Lars is like has miraculous massage therapy abilities, and
Hmm.
like he tries to massage her a little bit, and like she's so relaxed that like she spits out her drink, and then
Yes, like the fruit punch or whatever it is. Yeah.
but the part that made me laugh was like he's like, I guess I just can spot it when people are tight, and Jenny says, I guess some girls are tighter than others, and then Lars does a huge spit take in her face, like full on. It's just like
Yes.
that's so like glorious.
Well, and the best part is they don't react like it's weird at all. It's just like, I don't know. It's yeah. Most people are like, what the hell did you just do? She's just like laughing and having fun. Yeah.
I mean,
I
it's in the
that
script.
was pretty good. That's true. Yeah.
But yeah,
No,
the
that's true.
scene with the guy. Okay, I'll let you continue.
All right, I'll walk us through this human Pac-Man game because
Please,
this was one of my
please
favorite
do.
set pieces, and I think probably for most people this is like a more memorable scene in the movie. So, like I said, they're in a tropical hedge maze. The men and women are taking turns chasing each other. It's kind of like a capture the flag type of thing mixed with tag, I guess. So Putman is dressed as a banana and gets taken down immediately. And then they have a control tower where Dave and Sam are up there with like a radio. And one of them is like, cue pretzel, cue pretzel. They're trying to get the pretzel's attention. The pretzel in this case is Juan in a pretzel costume. So they go to try to find him. And of course, he's in the staff house having sex with a woman in a watermelon costume, which had me laughing. It's just so absurd. Meanwhile, a man in a pear costume comes around the corner and is told that he is needed in the maze. So you have all these like just employees dressed as different fruits who are all part of this like Pac-Man game.
I love the pear guy so much.
Yes, and he always looks so annoyed. It's just like, God, seriously?
Every shot of the pear man running just made me laugh
Yeah.
like out loud. I couldn't help it.
He kind of looks like a pear too. I don't know, like just the guy kind of like embodies a pear very well. I don't know how that makes sense, but it does in my mind. The game continues as we get a first-person POV of someone taking and putting on the pineapple costume. And then the pear looks less than amused at this. And then he sees the pineapple dressed in a poncho with a machete and then gets chased before getting his stomach sliced. I liked this death. I gotta say, there was something about it. So first of all, it's a daytime kill, which if you can pull that off, really cool looking, I think. But as soon as he gets killed, they kind of like pan up to show the whole maze. And he kind of gets killed at like a dead end corner. So the other side of that hedge, you have like these guests that are still playing the game and they're having a great time. So I thought it was kind of clever, I gotta say, from a horror perspective.
That may have been the peak.
Yeah, there's not a lot of horror stuff in this movie that like surprised me or like intrigued me necessarily, but I thought that one was handled pretty well overall. So then we cut to one of the staff members, Carlos. There's a lot of staff members to keep track of here. So Carlos is parasailing while Jenny is walking through the jungle. She comes across Lars, who is practicing Qigong with 2 swords. Again, there's just so many new agey pseudo martial arts kind of things going on with him.
He has a kind of a funny line where he's like,
I mean, bodywork's still my life, but I've also done the Dianetic thing. Spent a little time in the Forum, did a little Falun Gong and Bang Chow. But you know who's got a great philosophy?
Who?
Coconut Pete. Have a good time all the time.
Always eat the worm. Totally.
So you can tell he's very much into Coconut Pete, and we'll find more out about that later. He then demonstrates a move on 2 guests randomly. There's just 2 guests near them, and so he decides to do the snoring panda on the woman and makes her immediately pass out. And then he does the leaking turtle on the guy, which causes him to pee himself. Stuff like this, I'm just like baffled by, I don't know.
Young people's humor.
I guess so. Maybe I'm too old, but I don't know. Wasn't all that funny, but kind of random. There's more talk of meridians and buttons and connecting them, giving him great power, all sorts of new agey mumbo jumbo while he's flirting with Jenny. So yeah, you can tell their relationship's starting to build up there. Then Carlos slams into a shed and they go over there to see what's going on. And the words "Naughty Carlos" are carved into his chest. And they see a boat driving away from the island without a driver. So the mystery begins. Oh. And then we have Putman finding the pair's body and leads a dancing and singing Juan and Dave to the body. And they're singing follow the banana, which that had me laughing a lot as well. And Sam, the party police, is laying next to the pair's dead body with the words "Naughty Cliff" carved on his chest. So now we're starting to see a pattern arising. The entire staff are discussing the recent killings and decide that they need to keep this a secret from the guests. And we see that the killer has been crossing out names in blood on the activity board. And we get another Coconut Pete lyric on that board that is, "Do your jobs and live, tell the guests and die, because everybody's looking to find their own paradise." So again, doesn't really mean much now, but it might mean something later.
I meant to ask you, what are the words like being carved into the bodies? Is that a reference to a particular movie, or does that just happen a lot?
Good question. I'm sure it's from something. Thinking like 7, maybe. Maybe
That's
not,
kind of
but
what
I
I
don't
was
know.
thinking, but I couldn't remember.
Yeah, and that's not really a
anything
horror
on the
movie
body.
necessarily. Yeah, I'll have to look that up. I'm intrigued. Good question. So then they have the obligatory scene where they have to go and check up. There's no boats. The telephone's been ripped off the wall, and the shack with the radio's been destroyed. Okay, so now we know they have no communication at all. So they're stuck on this island with a killer. They then bring in Hank, who's Coconut Pete's head of security and former FBI agent, to help. And he basically just tells them to continue to do their jobs as normal while he investigates what's going on. And Juan gives this fantastic line of,
How the hell are we supposed to do our job when somebody is killing the dick out of everybody on the island?
Then we cut to them having an SOS beach party. And during this scene, Hank is basically trying to size everyone up. They have a piñata, so he's testing people's skills. Like how do they wield like a stick, like could they be a killer? And then he has a very smart theory, I guess. And he says that the pair was sliced from left to right, which means they're looking for a left-handed killer. So that's something else he's looking at while people are, hitting the piñata.
Okay, I was thinking to myself, like, me, a right-handed person, I read from left to right, right from left to right. I can imagine slashing from left.
I mean, I think you're getting more power if you're coming from above.
Just the whole backhand thing,
But who does a back? Like, you're not gonna do a backhand in tennis as your power move, right?
Well, hopefully this will clear me if I'm ever accused of murder by machete, because I don't know what I'm talking about.
Are you a lefty or righty?
I'm righty.
Oh, good. You're normal. Just kidding. Totally kidding. Totally kidding. All you lefties out there. We love you. Then Lars says something about, oh, the poem on the board sounds familiar, but he can't wrap his fingers around it, which I thought was a very strange line. Jenny pulls a dildo out of a suitcase. I just left that in my notes because that's the kind of movie we're dealing with here. Next, we have Juan is approached by Penelope, who has made him a Robin Hood-like hat, which he absolutely does not want to wear. And she wants to take a walk on the beach, but he is extremely hesitant as he is scared of the killer, which I thought this was kind of a fun little thing. Like this guy who would probably have sex with anything that moves, who would normally be totally up for this, is like trying to find reasons not to walk on the beach with her. And then she body slams him out of nowhere and becomes a very dominant person, telling him that she saw him eating watermelon earlier and that she sees everything. So I think at this point we're start to maybe suspect Penelope might be a little off her rocker, let's say. Like so many horror movies, they start to drop little hints in. And I think they're supposed to be guiding us through thinking everybody could be the killer, of course. Meanwhile, Putman is going through Dave's records and sees a bunch of Coconut Pete albums. These had me laughing like none other. This reminded me of Spinal Tap for sure. So the first album was Hope They Have Hammocks in Heaven. Second one is Spanish Fly Fisherman. Just great titles for albums. We get more of these throughout. One of them has a handwritten note saying, Dave, sorry about your parents. Wish I could have done more. Uncle Pete. And then there's also a newspaper clipping telling more about whatever incident this is. Next, we have Yu, who was the character from earlier, who's walking through the jungle. She ends up getting chased by the poncho-wearing figure. Of course she does. And she runs into Hank, who approaches the poncho guy. And you think, okay, this is great. There's going to be a good standoff here. He gives some bizarre lines like,
there's always one fuckhead like you, trying to shit in the apple pie. Well, you just shat in the one apple pie that knows how to shit back.
Just poetry. And then he quickly gets his throat slit. So basically his character is just totally useless in the grand scheme of things. So he's dead. Hugh continues running down the beach, gets in a comically slow golf cart to which the poncho killer just slowly walks along the side of. She ends up dying. I don't know if it's revealed here or later, but she dies. Cut to the next day. The staff is leading the guests in the sun salute, which is quite funny as they discuss a very serious matter, aka the serial killer, while doing the silliest dance imaginable. I could not tell what this dance was. They do like this weird crab shuffle thing. I don't even know. I don't know why. This must just be a tradition of the resort. And then Lars tells him that he realized where he remembered the words from. It was from one of Coconut Pete's songs off of the album Sea Shanties and Wet Panties. Again, another winner. The name of the song was Naughty Cal. So this has the ensemble go to Dave's turntable and start listening to the lyrics, while Pete comically does not remember any of his own lyrics or songs. He doesn't remember recording any of these albums, which this part had me just laughing like none. Again, very Spinal Tap.
He said something about 1978, like nobody remembers anything about that year. That was quite a year or something.
Yeah.
Like,
Uh-huh. Oh, it's great. Yeah, so he's kind of like the key to all of this, and he doesn't even remember any of his words or why he wrote any of his words.
it's a great song too, by the way. It kind of grew on me.
Well, fun fact. So I'll just break off to a fun fact here for a second. So they actually wanted to play this movie for Jimmy Buffett. So Jimmy Buffett's like, sure. So I guess he flew them down to like Key West or something. They screened the movie for him, and he absolutely loved it. He like gave it his blessing, and he even asked if he could play some of their Coconut Pete songs on his tour.
What?
So I'm wondering if like the song Naughty Cal ever got played live by Jimmy Buffett.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, so if nothing else, that came of this. You got Jimmy Buffett's blessing, which is probably a pretty big deal in that world, whatever world that is. Then they realize that many of the kills correspond with lines from the song, and Putman asks Pete if there's any significance to the song, and Pete has a great response. He says,
I don't know, it's a sea shanty, and Naughty Cal's his underwater cowboy, and Toki and Bongo are his buddies, and they go on this adventure to find Atlantis or some shit.
That's his entire explanation of the song. And then they're left with lyrics about an orca and an octopus. Juan comes running in saying, you and Hank are dead, which leads to the comical misunderstanding with Pete thinking that he's talking about him. It's like the whole who's on first.
This bothers me because I think they only named the Asian character you in order to make that one joke.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And yeah.
Or you.
Or No, poor you.
No, poor
Just
you.
to add on to that joke. We played right into their hand. So then Juan takes them to Hank, who has "This could be you" carved in his chest. And we later find out Yu's dead anyway. It doesn't really matter. Then we have this great scene with a island fashion show, which again, this is another one of those things that would happen at a resort like this. And you have Putman and Juan singing island songs and getting totally booed off stage because no one wants to
I
hear
didn't
them sing.
understand why they were doing that. Why is that a part of the show? Is it just because like other people are dead who are supposed to be doing it?
Maybe, or maybe it's just supposed to warm up the crowd for something better, which is actually Pete. It's because then Pete and Lars get on stage together and start singing. And Lars is wearing this hideous Pleasure Island poncho. Again, it's all this branding and like trying to sell
available
merchandise
in
and
the
shit.
gift shop for $19.99. It's so awful.
And then Putman goes out wearing horrible pajamas. And Dave starts to think that Putman is the octopus that was referred to earlier because of his dreadlocks. Kind of makes sense. That doesn't really go anywhere, unfortunately. It's just kind of like a random thing. But I think at this point, people are starting to suspect each other. They're starting to like, get a little suspicious of one another. Now we get to the point where they want to go and try to find the boats. So Putman invites Jenny to go look for the boats, but Lars steps in and says he'll go with Putman instead. And we start to see the rifts in the group as, like Putman's not really like too comfortable going out with Lars. So again, we just start seeing rifts. Then there was this like weird thing. So Putman grabs a machete while Jenny sends Lars off with a kiss, and then Putman gets a handshake. There's this whole weird subplot where Putman is the only one that doesn't get like hugged or kissed or anything by Jenny. It's kind of a silly thing. He just keeps going like, oh, come on. I don't know.
Yeah.
Kind of a dumb plot. Anyway, the next scene is one of my favorites. So this is when Coconut Pete is in the kitchen wearing a kimono-like silk robe, showing two very silent staff members how to cook for the resort. And at one point, Pete grabs a coconut like a madman and whips it at the wall.
Just losing it.
It's so weird. He's just like, he's talking about like, what do you think the secret ingredient is? Coconut. He's just getting so pissed at these guys. And then he just manically rages through the kitchen while Juan and Jenny watch on. So I think you're supposed to think that they are suspecting him as the killer now because he's kind of losing his marbles. I could have just had a half hour of him in the kitchen cooking. Honestly, I would have been.
He needs
totally
his own
fine
cooking
with it.
show.
He does. Oh my God. Coconut Pete's cooking hour. Be great.
I wonder why there wasn't a spinoff.
Seriously. That'd be good. So then Penelope sneaks up behind Jenny and Juan and offers them some calamari, aka octopus. And Juan is hesitant as she shoves it in his mouth, which is a very just awkward scene. This gigantic, like rubbery octopus just getting shoved in his mouth. And then invites him to her room. He suspects that she may be the killer, but takes her up on the invitation just to kind of like take one for the team and be like, all right, let's see, if this is real. But he brings Dave, Jenny, and I think Sam. Oh, they're in my backdrop. Dave, Jenny, and Sam with them to hide in the closet and just to make sure nothing bad happens. We find out her secret as she reaches under the covers like Basic Instinct style, like she's going to grab something. And she grabs a picture of herself as a gymnast.
In front of an American flag. It's such a funny moment.
It's so wholesome. She spent her whole life in the gym and just wanted to party like everyone else. That's her backstory. And Juan is predictably turned on by this, and they continue having wild sex for what appears like a very long time while the three of the others are still in the closet watching.
She performed some gymnastics. I think that's what got him going.
I wonder if she did her own stunts. I would have like immense more respect for this actress if she could pull that off.
I didn't read anything about gymnastics training when I was researching the actor, but I could be wrong.
We should have gotten her on for an interview. I
Should have paid more attention to the ending credits.
Yeah, I think I shut it off like immediately. Anyway. Meanwhile, we're back to Putman and Lars, who again are on a voyage to try to find the missing boats. They're making a fire. They're discussing Lars' relationship with Jenny, and Putman's like really put off by this and kind of pissed that they're together. And he puts on this incredibly large plastic sleeping cap, which is just, again, everything about Putman's character is just like ridiculous.
As he's taking it out, he is like, this is when they're at the campfire, right?
Yeah.
The other guy, what's his name?
Lars.
Sorry, spaced out. Lars is like staring at the plastic, like, is he going to suffocate me with this? And he keeps
Yes.
like very pointedly unfolding it like one layer at a time, and then it ends up going on his head. I thought that was a nice
That was a
gag.
good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. So at this point, he pulls out that newspaper clipping from earlier, and we get like the full story. Basically, it says sister and brother-in-law of Coconut Pete, Wabash, trampled to death at a Coconut Pete concert. Tragedy makes orphan of Coconut Pete's own nephew, who is Dave, the DJ slash drug person. Then, while they're out there doing their camping thing, Sam and Dave go through Lars's stuff. They find his sword, and then they also find a shrine to Coconut Pete with Lars' face cropped into all the photos.
Isn't that weird?
It's that creepy moment. Yeah, right?
Like we
It's
know that
moment.
he's a big fan, but that is like never explained.
Yeah. So now so we went from like, we're just suspecting everyone at this point. So now it looks like, yep, Lars is definitely the crazy guy who's obsessed with, Coconut Pete. All right, he's our guy now. Meanwhile, we go back to the camp and Putman wakes up next to a burned out fire to the poncho killer chasing him. He gets on top of him and it ends up being Dave, but then Dave gets stabbed from behind by another killer, and it's Putman himself. Then this other Putman kisses the original Putman and he wakes up. It was a dream. I don't know.
Nightmare.
Not that exciting. Yeah, that's exact. I could tell it was a dream as soon as it started, honestly. It was one of those things.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I see what you did there. All right. So fast forward, Lars comes back to camp with the boat, but the propeller is not working. Putman is missing after he ran off into the jungle. Sam then accuses Lars of being the killer.
Oh my God. Lars has the best line here.
Hey, I don't have to tell you shit, fun pig. You want to fun arrest me? You get a fun fucking warrant. Until then, stay out of my fun fucking face!
One of my favorite lines in the movie.
Well, it also is very funny to me that Sam, the fun police, is like, everyone kind of like looks at him as the police, but he's clearly, it has nothing to do with any sort of authority. Like, it's just very funny that the only person that's like, I don't know, kind of responsible, I guess, is just like, they defer to him for all matters of this. Then they go ahead and lock Lars in the drunk tank. And that night, Jenny goes swimming. And this is kind of a cool scene. I don't know. I thought this was kind of a good one. She goes swimming and she's kind of ensuring that the other guests will be kind of sticking around. Like, hey, you guys can be around for a while. She doesn't want to be left alone. And as soon as she jumps in and kind of comes up from the water, she realizes that they all left to go get free drinks. Then we get the patron, Dirk, who was the guy who was razzing Putman throughout the movie, kind of jumps in the water and then scares her. And then she notices that the poncho killer is holding a TV above his head with her show on the TV, and he throws it in the water and kills Dirk. The power shuts off, she runs off, and then runs into Putman.
I just want to add that Jenny did try to save, what's his name?
Dirk,
the kid character.
The kid character.
Like, she yelled at him, get out of the pool, get out of the pool. And he's just like, he was too slow to catch on. So it was,
I think he's like, oh, look at this service. You're bringing a TV out here. Oh, this is great. Like, yeah, he's just like a total dummy. Sam comes and they rush off to find that Lars has broken out of his room. They go to Pete's house to get the generator key. Then Dave shows up at the door with headphones on. This is basically the ensemble all coming together and trying to figure out what's going on. Coconut Pete's body flies through the window at some point, and they all start pointing fingers at each other. We find out that Juan was institutionalized prior to coming to the island for having sex with a goat. So I don't know. Maybe we're supposed to suspect him at this point. Again, they go through like one character at a time.
Before he admits what it is that he did, like, they were like, he must be the murderer because he got out of prison and came straight. Right. Like,
and then he gives that ridiculous reason.
I hate that because of
not great
animal cruelty, but yeah.
It's the only knock on his character. I kind of love Juan otherwise, but yeah, that was kind of low blow.
See, I think he is a like Latin American stereotype of, a hypersexual man. He's got a very stereotypical accent. So like that stuff sort of makes me sad. But I mean, the guy plays the character pretty well and has some of the funniest moments.
Well, and it's funny, these guys, if you ever see them in any other movie, like they're nothing like this. Like they play different characters, and him especially, he's very good, I feel like, in this character. Like I've seen him in, Super Troopers, and it's completely different. Nothing like this guy. But so hats off to them for that. They are pretty good at taking on new roles. This part was kind of funny. So Putman steps in and accuses Dave because of the article that he found. And then after revealing the article, like it's this huge reveal that no one knows about, he finds out that everyone already knows about this and they make him feel like shit for bringing it up, which I thought was kind of funny. Like, really, you had to bring that up? Like, you're going to make Dave sad now, which I kind of like that. We then learn that Pete had signed the island over to Dave last week, and Lars comes in sobbing over Pete's death. And then basically everyone runs off in different directions except Jenny and Lars. Dave goes to the DJ booth, and later Lars and Jenny find his head spinning on the turntable while the record plays, saying that we're all gonna die.
I thought that was a good shot, a good little scene.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Because I think his DJ booth was the only thing that had power for some reason. I'm not sure why that was.
Because he knew how to operate the generator.
Oh, is that why?
Because he owns the place.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yep, but he's kind of a dummy, so
right.
I don't know. So then Lars and Jenny hide under a bed. I don't remember what prompts them to do this. They must have seen something. So
Lars meditating to make himself thinner to fit under the bed. That was pretty funny.
That was pretty good. Yeah, he like clearly is way too big. Like you're just visually looking at like this, not going to happen. I think they show his like stomach shrinking or something. It's almost like the Wicked Witch of the West, like just shrinking. And yeah, he finds his way under the bed doing his meditation. And a person comes into the room and they end up handcuffing his leg to the bed. Turns out that it's Putman. Then the killer comes up behind Putman and he proceeds to hit tennis balls at him.
That
to slow him
also
down.
was very funny.
Yes.
It didn't have much effect, but
no, not at all.
The funniest part to me was that I forgot the entire movie that Putman was the tennis pro because he never does anything tennis related until that moment.
Nope. Yeah, it's completely ridiculous. As they are leaving, so basically he's kind of like sacrificing himself. He's like, go, go, go. You know, I'll hold them off. And as they're leaving, Lars says,
Namaste.
fuck off, which I thought was quite hilarious. So then Jenny and Lars go and hide in the shower. They hear Putman saying, it's you. I knew it was you. To which Jenny and Lars are super frustrated because he won't say their name. He's just like playing the pronoun game. Then they go outside. There's like this rave party going on. Like no one knows anything's going on. And then, this part's gross. One guy takes an ice shot or takes a shot of the ice luge and it's blood.
Yeah.
Oh God, that just, ugh.
Do you still want to do the vodka luge?
Yes, but as long as I trust the person that's putting the liquid in there, because that is gross. So this is the big reveal. This is like at the end of Halloween where Laurie goes into the other house and she sees all of her friends' bodies, you know. So in this case, everybody looks up, the lights turn on, and all of the dead bodies are all hanging from the ceiling.
It takes a lot of work to hang bodies up like that. Can you imagine?
And I think that might have been one of the jokes, because you see this in so many slasher movies where it's like, how in the hell did they manage to do this? And it's just so over the top. So, yep, it's the big reveal. Everyone starts freaking out, bolting out of the building. Juan walks up, bloody with a machete, saying that he found Putman, which is why he's bloody. So again, we're kind of like, is Juan the killer? I don't know. Then they go inside the spa to find Sam. And this was kind of an interesting scene. There's like 3 mud baths.
This I thought was a nice nod to Invasion of the Body Snatchers. The one with Jeff Goldblum.
Oh, interesting. Because there's 3 mud baths, and Lars, I think does he stick a knife in one of them?
Yeah, they pull up Sam's body from the first one, and then like Sam is dead, and then Lars like stabs the second one. You never know if anybody was in there or not, because then Sam comes to life. Yes, he was never dead, and he's like, "Do you guys know I can hold my breath for 3 minutes and however many seconds?" I mean, like, I wrote in my notes like Sam actually plays a pretty good psychopath for a couple minutes. Like they could have actually made this movie a lot scarier if they had wanted to, just with his character.
This is one of my frustrations with this movie, which I'll get to later in my ratings, but. He's got like a very maniacal face, like very almost like robotic, like his eyes open really wide, and he's just got the way he talks. It's very like
his unhinged lines about
setting you guys up to decipher that stupid naughty Cal song. Who's the orca? Who's the octopus? I am the walrus. I am the walrus. I am the walrus.
I just love that reference.
Juan says that he suspected Sam the whole time and calls him machete Phil and then asks him how he pisses out of his asshole. Again, there's so many weird lines in this movie that they had me laughing because they're so random. And then we get to why did he do it, which is kind of funny because he goes through two flashbacks. The first one is of him like right at the beginning. I guess he like asks Rolo. I don't remember this character. This was the weed guy. This I think met one of my 3 predictions.
First guy to die.
Yeah, first guy to die. He asked Rolo for weed, and he's basically, no, I can't get you any weed, man. So he's like, but then he's like, wait, no, that wasn't the reason I did this. And then he starts talking about Pete signing over the island. So I thought that was kind of funny. This whole grand.
Actually really liked that. I don't think I've ever seen that happen in a comedy before.
Yeah.
But I thought it was pretty creative. Funny.
Where he totally forgot his motive or like was confused about his motive for killing like an entire island of employees. Lars puts like a spell on Sam to kind of hold him off while the others run away. The rest of them go back to the club, and Penelope gets picked up by a random partier. I don't know. I put that in my notes. Sam is walking towards the club, covered in mud with a machete. They see Penelope and Sam in the giant aquarium. I don't even know where this all ends up. So Sam and Penelope are in the aquarium. I think Sam's trying to kill her, something like that. Juan uses an axe to break the glass and let them out. Sam then sits up like Michael Myers in the first Halloween, the original Halloween. I think that might have been a nod to that, where he kind of like gets up from a laying position, like right at his waist, and then turns to look over, kind of like that. And then goes to attack Jenny, gets stabbed in the back by Lars, who says, the fun is done. So this is the first time Sam dies. Then they go outside, and the guests are still partying like crazy. I think like the pretzel is still having sex with the watermelon, although it's not Juan this time. I don't know what's happening.
I thought it was a different food that time.
Oh, was it? Maybe it was. I thought it was
still the watermelon, but I thought, I don't know.
A different sexual food partner. Sam then comes out, chases them through the jungle. It's now daytime, and they approach a cliff that's overlooking the water. And Juan tells them that they need to keep their legs together and clench their ass cheeks. Otherwise, water will fly up their butthole and pulverize their intestines.
Okay, so part of that's true. Definitely should.
You looked it up too?
No. I've jumped off cliffs in the Ozarks before.
Okay.
Yeah, if the water goes up your butt, it's like getting an enema. I'll just say that. Yeah, but it doesn't pulverize your innards.
I had to research that, and I came to the same conclusion that you just said. Yeah, that checks out.
You did your research the clean way.
I did. I was looking for dark facts, so I kind of went down a lot of different. Like, not gonna lie,
that would have been pretty dark.
I was trying to find someone that maybe died of doing that for that particular. Anyway, so then they all jump in, and I think one of them actually says, "Oh no, I think I got water up my butt or something."
No, it's such a great line. It's Jenny, and when she hits the water, she says, "Ow, my asshole."
Oh,
I just thought it was so funny.
Yes. See, that's like the comedy that I think works well in this movie. Just like quick jokes.
They could have workshopped it a little more, they could have made it better.
Oh, I totally agree.
Yeah. Potential.
They all jump in, and then they end up seeing that the boat that was submerged, actually, that they thought was missing. So the boat's down there. Juan dives down to get the propeller and gets sliced in the stomach. His dying wish is not a kiss from Penelope, but rather for Jenny and Penelope to kiss, which I thought was the way that he delivered these lines was so like heartfelt that it kind of had me laughing. I'm not going to lie.
Okay.
It's just okay. Oh, you're not a Juan fan, huh?
I mean, I just have mixed feelings.
That's fair. Then Juan sinks down and Sam pops up onto the boat and a fight ensues. Lars wraps him in a rope and drags him behind the boat. Sam throws the rope over the pier so that they drive in circles, pinching Sam against the raft until eventually his body splits in half at the waist.
It's a really bad idea, Sam.
I thought this was like a very creative sequence.
Agreed.
I gotta say, for a movie like this, I loved it. Sam's upper half then jumps out one more time, and Lars chucks it back into the water.
That was funny.
Jenny and Lars do the heaven point to each other. I don't know what that is. That must have been in the subtitles. And then they sail off into the sunrise, and we see Sam's bottom half kicking on top of the water behind them, which, what a way to end a movie.
Yeah.
What did you think of this ending here? Was it
What did I think of the ending? Actually, I kind of think the ending was absolutely the best part of the movie. Like besides or maybe in addition to the Pac-Man, human Pac-Man maze with the running fruit.
Yes.
And not just because that's when the movie ended. It's like the remaining characters, they solved a puzzle, like putting the boat back together. That was, that took some thinking under pressure. The killer got a creative, silly death and then came back as two different halves. That's pretty great. Lars learns that you can't be a pacifist all the time in real life, which was important. I think that's maybe the message of this movie, if it has one. But more importantly, how did I do on my 3 things? I forgot to look for string bikinis. Did you see any?
I mean, I will just give you that one. That's
okay.
That there's got to be one.
Not on the main characters. So at least they got their dignity. They got to wear shorts and stuff a lot of times.
I know which poster you were talking about. Let me look it up real quick because it's the one where she's holding a knife behind her back. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, also, interesting. She's actually wearing she's wearing a cover. What do you call it? Like a cover up on her bottom.
Oh yeah.
I also thought it was like a bikini.
Yeah, it had strings tied on the side. I'm sure I saw it.
We may have to. Oh, I think we're gonna have to rewatch this movie. Unfortunately, to find that.
Well, my second.
I'm gonna let you do that.
There's no way I'm gonna win because my second thing just flat out didn't happen.
Which remind me again.
Like it's dark and a character thinks that it's their partner or lover in the room, but it's really the killer.
Right.
That's kind of tropey.
That's a good one though.
They could have gone with that. The third thing that I got partial credit for, I said half, you said quarter, was Penelope. She was kind of I wouldn't call her prudish, but she was sheltered by growing up in gymnastics for all those years. And who knows why she was even there? I guess to party like everyone else, but I don't think she knew what she was getting into.
No.
So
that's a tough one. Her character is kind of tricky, I think.
At the same time, they also let Jenny survive, and Jenny slept with everyone but Putman. So
yes.
I kind of like that they subverted that trope and had 2 final girls.
Yeah. Well, I think you won. I mean, I had my weed guy. I'm pretty sure I get points on that one. But other than that, I thought wet t-shirt contest was a given. I'm like, come on, looking at the front of this, come on.
You know what? I mean, I have some problematic things to criticize that I've made reference to, but this movie was not as sexist as I thought it would be. Like there wasn't that much objectification. It was definitely like sex positive, whatever that meant in the aughts, it definitely could have been more offensive. But I think like at least everything we saw was consensual with like the possible exception of this weird expectation that the resort staff was supposed to have sex with the guests. But I mean, maybe that is their job. And you could consider them to be sex workers. I listed that under one of my, like, this is an okay thing about this movie.
Nice. Yeah, I agree. I think I was expecting kind of like an American Pie-ish type.
Yeah.
Like one of the terrible sequels, maybe like at that level of, I don't know, like shocking. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah. And now that I've said that about sexism, I do need to reiterate the absurdly problematic aspects of Chandrasekhar playing a character with dreads. He never like actually says, I'm a black character, but like, I don't know. It doesn't sit right with me.
I was just utterly confused by his character. I didn't know what to make of it. It almost couldn't be offensive because I didn't understand anything what was going on with him.
That's a good point. And then I've already mentioned like the Latin American stereotype, the character of Juan. I think that's all I have to complain about. If we're going to go into this, I do have a list of good things. Did
you want to cut to our ratings?
Is that cool?
Yeah, let's do it. Go ahead.
Good things about this movie. Bill Paxton. Moment of silence.
Oh.
The wacky song that was a red herring clue to the murder mystery. Naughty Cow.
Yep.
Okay, they played it again at the end credits. I think I really liked it.
Yeah.
Good. The ending. I've already mentioned that. Like, the ending was good and fun. Well done. Tight.
Mm-hmm.
And then, not as sexist, sex positive. It's just too bad that it was absurd how not funny and not scary it was a lot of the time. Like you and I have pointed out a lot of times that it was actually funny and could have been scary. So it's sort of like it's frustrating. I know it's difficult to put a movie together and there's a lot of factors like time, money. I forgot to write down the exact budget. It was in the single millions of dollars, like in the 7 digits. And then they came up about $1 million short lifetime gross.
I mean, I've never even heard of this movie. I can't imagine there was much marketing behind this.
Yeah.
At all. Which is surprising because Super Troopers was like it was like a huge independent, I think it was an independent movie. Like it came out of nowhere. So I'm very surprised they didn't put more marketing behind this because that movie did way better than anyone would have thought it would have done. Just not to step in too much. It's interesting.
Yeah, I wonder what like the formula was that they got right in Super Troopers, which I've never seen.
Well, I will say it was like a super low budget movie. They were staying in like crappy it was filmed in like Vermont along like a highway. Like they were staying in terrible motels. Everything was just like DIY. So I think it had a lot of that charm.
Yeah.
And like it was just done very well. And it was like, just people bonding on a very DIY project. I think there's something to be said for that. So they were probably given a bit more money for this, and maybe that was their undoing.
They'd made some money and proven themselves by now. And I guess now that you said a couple of them were horror fans, I'm kind of like, oh, they wanted to make a horror movie.
I'll send you an interview with one of them, and it's actually it's very heartfelt. You can tell they're very genuine with their respective the genre. So anyway, sorry to step in.
Oh no, that's fine. I just wish it had worked out for them. Honestly, worked out better. After I prepared my notes and stuff, I read something that said every once in a while, like somebody will do a marathon of their movies on some channel, and they always omit this one.
Oh, well, funny thing is, this is their favorite movie of theirs that they've done.
No way.
They've all said this. They've all said this is their favorite film of theirs.
I respect that.
Yeah, own it.
So that said, I think I'm going to give it a 1.5.
Wow. Is that your lowest rating for a movie thus far?
It is, but we've only just started getting into bad ones.
That's true. We're starting to scrape the bottom a little bit here. Just we're testing out the depths at this point, I think. Oh my. Okay. The 1.5 screams, huh? So I really struggled with the tone of this movie. Like the first time I watched it, I could not figure out the horror comedy pendulum. I just couldn't. Like it did. And then it also has this very early 2000s look to it that I hate. I hate like early 2000s horror movies, the aesthetic of them. They just are very bright and kind of polished and like, I don't know. It's not for me. But anyway, I figured that this film would go one of two routes. Either it would be like, it would parody specific horror movies like the Scary Movie franchise, or it would be like more generally poke fun at like common horror movie tropes. So I was hoping for the second one, and I think it did that more. I didn't necessarily see a lot of like direct horror references, so I was happy about that. Because I really don't need more scary movie.
No one does.
Films. So, however, I don't know if it even did the second. I don't even know if it did that all that well. Kind of like parodying tropes all that well.
They could have done so much more with that.
They could have. I just feel like they didn't lean into anything as much as they should have. They didn't lean into the comedy as much. They didn't lean into the horror as much as they could. There was missed opportunities there. It just kind of came out feeling like a generic spring break slasher, sadly enough. Like kind of similar to like I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, which, fun fact, was also filmed in Jalisco, Mexico.
Oh.
And this is weird because throughout this movie, I kept thinking this looks a lot like I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, like the scenery, the hotels, everything. So I looked it up. These are like two horror movies that are filmed in that general area. And I actually went on my honeymoon about 2 hours north of where they filmed this. So like, I don't know. It's just very of that time. And it's just, I don't like that time. That's my problem. I don't know if it was far enough removed from the stuff that it was parodying in a lot of ways too. It just seemed to like blended with it.
Yeah.
With an ensemble movie like this, much of the success or failure of the film rests on the characters And outside of like Coconut Pete, Jenny, Juan, and Penelope, I didn't find the other characters like particularly funny or compelling.
They could have cut some of them.
They absolutely could have. But the ones that were good, I feel like definitely really brought the movie up. Some standout things I really liked were the Pac-Man game, which we already discussed. The constant references to Coconut Pete's extensive discography, always great. Again, very Spinal Tap, like reviewing their albums. And then I thought Juan and Penelope's relationship was kind of sweet. They kind of like kept stringing it along throughout the movie.
Yeah.
It was kind of sweet.
And Lars and Jenny.
Yeah, they were fine. I just didn't like Lars that much. I don't know.
I
It's
like
just
Lars.
yeah, you were Lars. Okay, well, you got your Lars. I got my Juan. I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
We'll call it a day.
we'll call it a day. And then the final fight scene, which we already discussed, I thought was absolutely fantastic. I think that's what this movie needed, is like a good way to go out, because it was bloody, it was gory, the effects were pretty good, and it was just silly. Seeing his legs kicking at the end was just like the perfect outro for this movie.
Do you think maybe they got like an action consultant for that and they could only afford it for like 3 hours?
You know what? You might be right, because throughout the movie, nothing else really looks all that interesting. It's just like,
They
oh
didn't
no,
even
killer
try.
stab.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah, you might be right.
It like went from like student theater to like this could actually be an action movie if you just look at this.
Oh,
you know?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. But overall, I give this movie a 1.5 out of 5 screams as
way!
well. Yes, and I told you earlier that I actually changed my rating. I
Fist
was
bump.
originally at a 1. Yeah, fist bump. Boom. I was originally at a 1, but I'm like, I thought about Coconut Pete and Bill Paxton in general, and I'm like, I got to give an extra half star just for him, because
There's
that
some
character's
humanity in there.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if he's ever done another role like that, like a comedic role to that extent. I kind of want to go through his or his filmography, because he's great in this. He does comedy very well. So I'd be interested to see if he has anything else out there.
I can't wait to see if we continue to sync up like this.
Yeah. I mean, I had a feeling we'd generally be in the lower half. I just didn't know if we'd be that spot on,
Yeah.
to be honest.
We promise we did not plan that.
No, absolutely not. I mean, this has been a rough series, I gotta say. So
Yeah.
actually, I should have asked you. So before watching this, I guess, what's your general perception of horror comedies?
So
Like, do you like them?
I do like them when they're really good, and I'm very picky. Like I like Shaun of the Dead.
Okay, I knew you were going to mention that. That seems to be like the top tier.
Yeah. Like I'm so picky that I can't even think of like what would be a close second. I also liked a lot Evil Dead the musical, which is
Oh, I haven't seen
a
that.
musical that I saw live. So I don't think we can use that. You compare that to movies, but that definitely I like. There are some horror musicals that I find funny, like Anna and the Apocalypse was all right. Yeah, it just has to be. It has to be right on. I really like this is not horror, but like the Ready or Not kind of vibe.
You don't consider that horror?
Yeah, I guess it could. It's more of a like, isn't it more of like a mystery? Like
It's a mystery.
who done it? Who done it?
It's like there's a term for those, like surviving the game, where one person's kind of like set up as they're kind of like getting hunted in a way. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I could see it as I view it as a horror movie, I guess. It's kind of a
the ending definitely.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I think genres are squishy anyway.
Another one that comes up a lot is Tucker and Dale versus Evil, which I have not seen, but
Not
that's always
my
listed.
not my vibe.
No? Did you see it?
I've seen some of it ish. Yeah.
Okay.
Not my vibe.
That one seems to be mentioned alongside like Shaun of the Dead. There's not a lot of them that are mentioned, but that one seems to come up a lot. So I don't know. Maybe I need to venture out more, but it's tough. This series has been difficult because I think we both are not terribly fond of found footage, and it doesn't sound like horror comedies are at the top of our subgenre.
It's hard to please with
list.
them, even though when they're good, I really, really like them. And
Yes.
my novel is actually a horror comedy. So
Oh, cool.
I'm trying hard to make it work, and I know it's hard to make it work and also be scary.
Gotcha.
If you don't care about it being scary, it's just a certain flavor of comedy. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But if you really want to drive it with fear and terror,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of skill that goes into that.
Hard to thread the needle. Cabin in the Woods, would that be considered comedy? I guess there's like dark comedy, I guess.
Okay, yeah, on some level, yeah, there's some things that are more situationally funny than like dialogue and antics. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like laugh out loud funny versus just kind of like
Yeah.
situationally funny.
Cabin in
Yeah.
the Woods, that was all right, but as soon as I figured out what the gimmick was, I was like, okay, I got it. I'm gonna watch something else now.
Yeah, the first half is kind of better in my mind when you're still figuring it out, getting those breakdowns.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was just curious what you thought about the genres in general, because this has been a rough series for me. Although I will say I was pleasantly surprised by some of the stuff in the Bay and even some of the stuff in Club Dread. I'm glad we watched these movies, but I'm not sure I'll be watching either of them again anytime soon. How about you?
It's been educational for sure. I'm
We're
glad
getting out
that
of our
I'm,
comfort zones.
you know what, getting out of your comfort zone is one way to like spark creativity in
Yes, I agree.
your projects. So I'm glad that we're doing this.
Mhm.
And it's fun to talk about movies that are bad. Maybe even more fun to talk about bad movies than good movies, although I do get really excited about good movies.
Yes.
That might happen next time.
Ooh.
Speaking of which, I might have a little wrap up speech.
Oh, by all
prepared.
means, go right ahead.
Well, folks, that's a wrap on our sun-soaked sand in your shorts, snorkel through box office bombs on the beach. We laughed, we cringed, and we hope you enjoyed our guided dive through these cinematic shipwrecks. Now it's time to trade in our flip-flops for, I don't know, some sensible shoes of some kind, because our next two-parter is taking a darker, more ominous turn. Please meet us at Mass and spiritually prepare yourselves for our next Evil AI mandated category, Priests and Prequels, in which we'll be delving into the sacred, the satanic, the seriously scary. Our first stop is The First Omen 2024, where hell on earth gets the evil backstory you never knew it needed, and the devil's in the cinematic details. So grab your crucifixes because it's going to be one unholy ride. Thanks for tuning in, angels and demons. Thanks and praise to our listeners. Please like and subscribe. And if you'd really like to be a saint, you could leave us a review. See ya, confession, you sinners.
Stay scary.